What is up, everybody? That did not go exactly as I wanted it to, but yeah, here we are live on Sunday, and today's topic: what the fuck is Dynex? Let's start with a little bit of roll call. See who else in the chat here. We got Fudweiser. He was first. We got Dan Ruggs, WorldCoin. Nice, very nice. Yeti. We got Yeti backstage. Going to pull him in and have a little conversation about what the fuck is Dynex. Let's see. WorldCoin Rugs Dan. Oh, no shit. All right. Matt Electron. Good to see you. Taines. Kyle Rosa. Neo Morpheus. Okay. And Steven Cicero. Dan Grusso. 619 OTA. Nick K. Everybody's rolling in now. What's going on, guys? All right. I'm just gonna pop him into the stream here. I'm not as smooth as Chumpit or Hawk or DJ or any of these guys are with the live streaming kind of director setup here. So we're just gonna fucking yeet into this. What's going on, Yeti? How you doing, bud?
How you doing? Yeah, no, been busy. Certainly going down the rabbit hole as I was saying before we come on. Like it's been a bit of an ordeal, but it's been really interesting. Like really,
journey
really
for sure. Good
so
deal.
I hear you've got some questions.
We do. We have questions. So let me start off by saying I have not dove into Dynex like at all, pretty much. I mean, I don't think I've been even I don't think I've even mined any of it yet. Like doing the 30 coins in 30 days. I think I was having issues with the wallet, and I don't even know if they were mineable back then. I don't know. I've slept since then, but so I don't know a lot about the project or the crypto other than what I've seen all of us, like, you know, all you guys putting out on videos and some stuff that's on like Discord, a little bit on the Reddit and just the interwebs in general, right? So let's start by Dynex, right? There's a Dynex and there's a Dynex coin.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that.
So Dynex is the actual company running the project, right? And then they've got their Dynex coin, which will effectively be the way that they utilize their system. The biggest thing that I've seen so far is obviously they're working on a solution for onboarding, which is perfect. They need a way to take normal, style money and have it converted on the fly by whether it be an exchange API or some kind of auto exchanger, right? So you pay in fiat, it converts it and pays out the miners. So they are slowly working on it, which is good.
And their main project piece of it is useful work.
Yeah,
right? It's rendering or some type of
so the way that I understand it is it's 5% POW and then 95% proof of useful work. So that's why it's so efficient when it's mining, and then obviously it'll ramp up when it needs to do useful work. And we've been slowly thumping it one step at a time. We broke 1 million chips quite quickly. We broke the 5 million chip barrier quite quickly. We're now up to 25 million chip barrier, which is where we've just recently got to. We managed to run it successfully for 11 minutes with enough chips to complete the task. When I asked it for a little bit more, though, yesterday, it was kind of a little bit worrying. We pushed it a little too hard, shall we say, and it sort of fought back a bit. So still work done. Okay.
So when you say chips, million chips, 5 million chips, is that individual GPUs? Is that chips on GPUs?
No. So their chip is effectively a simulated variable set that would work on their actual hardware that they're trying to develop. Okay. They're trying to develop their own piece of silicon. We were chatting about this yesterday in the audio channel, and we were debating on whether it falls under an FPGA or an ASIC, right? So it works like an ASIC, but not with a bit stream, right? It's because it's reprogrammable. But it acts like an ASIC because it only does one thing, which is Dynex proof of useful work. So which is it? It's almost like a reprogrammable ASIC, right? But then that falls into FPGA again. So which one is it, do you think?
So could it be reprogrammed to use for something else, like
No.
a useful work outside of the Dynex platform?
No, I don't believe so at this point.
Okay. So it's completely proprietary.
Yes. Yeah, it's their own piece of silicon.
Okay. And right now you're saying that our GPUs that are mining, whether
they're
it's
emulating
work or useful work, it's emulating. I got you.
It's emulating what functions would be on their CPU. A bit like running x86 instructions on a 64-bit processor, right? There's that emulation layer that in essence does the same thing, right? Same principle with your GPU. The chips are, so it's working out how powerful your GPU is and then slicing that up into, think of it like miniature VMs, right? Loads of little Dockers that have got one little bit of programming that runs inside of the VRAM on the GPU.
I was just going to ask where that lives. It lives locally on the machines that are doing the mining. So it's not like it's pointing to their servers.
They get it over 1x. That's how they get it over 1x rather than 16x, is that they preload into the VRAM. So therefore it lives on the card all the time until the job is complete.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting actually how they've took their approach compared to some others that have got X16 or X8 requirements, right? Because they're streaming to and from the card. Whereas Dynex has took this approach of, well, if we send it all into the card and then utilize the rest, then they only need 1x speeds.
So what all useful work is it completing? Like what kind of jobs is it doing?
So far they've got sat solving working. They've had that working for some time now. That's fairly straightforward and basic sort of supercomputer stuff, sat solving. So there's plenty of models out there that can test run their systems quite extensively. That bit wasn't so much what drew my attention. It's the machine learning side, right? Because if they can nail it for the price sort of barrier that they're trying to enter in, like there's nobody in that price barrier, no one. Which means from a sense of view of, business, that puts them in a good place to be.
So being in a, I want to say decentralized, but I don't think they're really decentralized yet, but just
they're getting there. They're getting there slowly.
So being a decentralized project, having that price point, I guess this kind of leads into one of my first questions is who is their customer? Who's their ideal customer? Who is their current customer? And like, who would they be, going after, I guess, to sell this
It's a fair question, actually. Like that's a legitimate question. And I can speculate on who they're definitely going to go after. So it's going to be people that have, huge data sets that they need crunched. I'm working with them at the moment to try and model computational fluid dynamics. It's something that in my line of work, we work with quite a lot in the automotive industry, right? For our customers.
Yeah.
So if we can do computational fluid dynamics or CFD, then that would be amazing because that would open up automotive straight away. It would, allow smaller, say, manufacturers of cars that maybe do like 20 cars a year to actually have access to that kind of technology. Usually it's only the big corporate companies like your Mercedes or your Teslas of the world who can actually afford CFD, in that quantity that they need, because it's usually very expensive.
Yeah. It takes a lot of compute to render that.
And we were spitballing all sorts of ideas yesterday of who could actually utilize it. You've got medical professionals for, crunching through blood test data, for example. They could have it analyze all of that and give you out all the data with a rough idea whether or not they need you back in like quickly, or can they call you in a couple of weeks? Is it that bad sort of thing? And Dynex even showed off something about breast screening quite recently, fun enough, about how their model can actually work all of those figures out, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really impressive if that can be done, a lot quicker than and a lot cheaper than, traditional methods. It would benefit a whole lot of people. So real quick, we got a super chat from Hawk Crypto Mining says, great interview. Just stopping by. I'll catch up later. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And Tane said Dynex never claimed to be decentralized either. So let me just clear the air here. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm not trying to bring any gotchas or any shit like that. This is literally just a conversation between me and Yeti. I don't know shit about Dynex. So
Yeah, you
one,
just
I'm
wanted
trying
to
to
know
learn
more
more.
information.
Right. I'm
That's all
trying
you
to
wanted
learn
to do.
more. And I think other people that may be in the same, you know, scenario that I'm in now would benefit from having this conversation or seeing this conversation. You know, I mean, you're fucking balls deep into this, dude. So you're the right person to talk to when it comes to, and I
wanted to understand how it all worked, right? So not only did we go and understand from, you know, the back end what I can code up and run, we're now running you know, the deep miners pool and actually seeing it from the other side as well. So I can actually completely make a, you know, a legitimate understanding of how it all works. And when it runs, like when you run a hard, heavy load, you can see it poolside. It does actually refer on the poolside to the you know, you see a lot of issues at the moment with the pools, but that's what they're working on. You know, today they've just released like 3 big updates again.
Yeah, and you're developing. That's the key part. I mean, this is the right time to do it. It's the bear market, you know.
Absolutely.
This is when these projects need to be working hard so that they can shine in the bull market and sell like crazy and yada yada. Which kind of also brings me to another point that Dynex didn't start out as a crypto, right? They didn't really focus on that. That wasn't the whole point of what they're trying to accomplish, right?
That's probably the biggest misconception some people have. Dynex is not a crypto company per se. They were already an existing company and they're utilizing blockchain technology. So that's why at the moment, a lot of it is centralized, right? They're taking the business approach. They're protecting their intellectual property. However, they do understand that being in the crypto industry, you've got to, you know, be a bit more transparent per se, I would say. Like a lot of people, you know, request all the time that Dynex is open sourced, show what they're doing, prove what they're doing. And that's what I've been working with Dynex to, you know, facilitate getting that all open sourced and public knowledge. They've recently released their SDKs, a whole bunch of Wikipedia stuff so that they can obviously get feedback from their users. They've now got a bug bounty running as well, which they actually pay people for the bug fixes.
Do they pay them in Dynex or do they pay them in fiat?
They pay them in Dynex at the moment.
Cool. Okay.
But at least they're being fair, right? They're giving them something for their efforts. Quite recently, SerpentX put out a video about it. There was some bad actors making use of some memory tweaks in 1.0 miner and were able to 4x their hash rate. Now, obviously, me, the team, and everyone who was involved worked pretty hard to figure that one out. And a user came forward to show how he did it and how to fix it in some respects, right? It gave us a very quick way to patch it up, and within a couple of hours of him informing them, it was dealt with. And you know, he got paid a very decent amount for his troubles and finding it, and that's great. That's what a bug bounty is exactly there for.
Right. And it's good to see that like the community kind of comes together like that. I mean, sometimes these crypto communities, and I don't see it as much in the mining side. I see it more of the, you know, Bitcoin cheerleaders, I call them, that, you know, they'll be sweet to your face and whatnot, but they'll fuck you over 3 times right behind you. And, you know, call it cream cheese. I don't know. That was a weird analogy. Let's see, what other questions do I have? So, okay, so I saw a video using like a rendering app. And I think it was making some type of structure of some kind.
RNA folding, would it be?
It might have been. It looked like I don't know. It looked like a giant structure with like pillars and things. And it looked like AutoCAD to me, like a Fusion 360 on steroids. Okay. You know what I mean? What was that doing?
So actually, why don't we do one better? Why don't we do one better?
Okay.
If we're going to do it, let's do it properly, right? All right, 1 second. Where is it? Got to figure out which screen it is. Oh, there we go. There we go. There we go. So I'm actually sharing the full back end of Dynex right now.
Okay.
So full disclosure, they do not pay me. I'm under no contract with Dynex. You know, they don't get to say what I can and can't say or what I can and can't show. So they've given me the access because they want to be open and transparent. And this is what I've been working on for a couple of days. This is me learning how to use their system. So I built a prediction algorithm. You know, that is something that I'm learning. Could I get it better? I'm pretty sure. It's just rough and ready at the moment, but that's the idea, right? If somebody who hasn't really done a lot of machine learning can pick it up pretty quick,
yeah,
that bodes very well for your normal everyday average person who wants to use it. So, I mean, we can actually go through this if you like. I've cleared it with everyone. We can run some tests if you'd like to run it. I mean, we can see it run right now if you really want. But it might be a little easier to explain what this is doing first, so that you guys can get a bit of an understanding. So obviously you build each step as you go, right? So it's no different than most machine learning algorithms. You're importing your packages, you're giving it all the variables, where all those variables are, what to do with all those variables. So this is a data set that was downloaded off of this link here. This is gonna be freely available to anyone on the SDK setup as well. So this is just me understanding and learning. And I'm trying to put as many, you know, actual notes in here as well, so that if anyone doesn't understand, again, there's notes in the inside of the project effectively to help. But because COVID-19 was such a big event, there's tons of data for it, right? And that's actually really good from a data perspective. Not good about COVID-19, but the actual data that it produced was a lot, right? For a very short period of time, that's the only data that basically was being stored around the world, right? COVID-19 data. So there's tons of it. And so I thought, what better way, right, to show off what this could do is, what about if I could predict, if based on all the symptoms of this one person, what's the percentage do you think that this person had COVID, right? Based on all their symptoms. And instead of just doing one record, right, I'm doing 10,000 records. Or yesterday I tried, you know, really ramping it up, and that's what caused all number of problems. I was heading for 1 million records to work through, you know, all at the same time.
Wow.
Which is like that would be pretty hard, like compute power to do that many in one go. So you can see here that what it does is it basically loads all your data, right, from a CSV file, breaks all the CSV file out into its appropriate age groups and stuff like that. And then this is how the machine learning is working off of. So under 30, under 50, over 50. How many of those have fever signs, body pains, runny nose, difficulty breathing, a little bit difficulty, severe breathing, and obviously possible infection. And obviously that's just a very small data set, right? I could expand this infinitely bigger and run it. Once I get the go ahead, that's what we're going to do. We're going to infinitely expand it out and give even more variables and even more data input to push it really hard, because the predictive algorithms, right? These are pretty easy to understand for somebody who's doing machine learning on a regular, right? Anyone who's done higher level machine learning will no doubt have no problem factoring all this in and being able to understand it. We were chatting with a random developer the other day, and he wants to use it for architectural stuff, which I can't get my head around because I'm not an architect, right? I can't think of how you would use it as an architectural thing. But maybe working out all the distances for steel beams to maybe put in, or some kind of, you know, bracing for the building, perhaps based on how tall it is or how wide it is. Like I say, I'm not an architect, so to me that's a little bit over my head. But the fact that there's somebody thinking really outside the box for it, that shows that there is actual people who want to use it and test it, and are thinking about stuff I'm not even thinking about, to be quite honest. So it's certainly interesting, shall we say, about how at the moment I'm able to have a play with this system before anyone else. It's very cool that they've been willing to open up the whole system to a non-employee as well. That's really unheard of in that kind of industry, because they would want to, you know, they'd want to protect their intellectual property, right? Normally it would be a non-disclosure agreement and a contract sort of thing saying you know, you can't say anything. But no, they've been completely the opposite.
And it shows a lot to their intentions, I think. You know, and especially, you know, you that has a lot of like ties in the community, so to speak. Like, you know, you're on all of our channels, and you know, I
try to be available for anyone. Like if anyone wants a tech, you know, breakdown, or they need it based on security and stuff like that, I make myself available, because I don't do YouTube normally. You know, YouTube isn't my wheelhouse, and I'm still never going to make a YouTube channel. So if people, you know, want that assistance, I'm more than happy to offer. And this is like my inner nerd is just, you know, right up here at the moment, because how many times in your life do you get offered to play with cutting edge technology, like way out there cutting edge technology? Yeah,
that's pretty cool. So that does kind of transition into something else I'd said recently, was like, I compare, and just very, you know, 30,000 foot view, I compare like Flux to a decentralized AWS, because they do nodes, they do storage, you know. Dynex, and initially my initial thoughts were Dynex is like a decentralized After Effects, you know, an Adobe
or D-Wave. Think of it more like probably D-Wave, because obviously D-Wave is doing stuff with quantum computing and stuff. So, and the best way to describe Dynex right now, it's not supercomputer, but it's not quantum computer. It's probably somewhere in the middle at the moment. It's like that almost bridge gap, right? And that's the bit that's really interesting for me, because I've only played with supercomputer. I haven't played with anything to do with quantum computers, right? You've got to be right up there in the industry to be even playing around with that technology at the moment. It's way too new. So there's only maybe 100, 200 people in the world at the moment that are playing with, you know, quantum computing and stuff on an actual physical level rather than just theoretical. And this is just somewhere in between right now. And the speed is pretty impressive. The way that it will launch, request workers, and just run, very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. I mean, if you want to run some tests, I mean, we can certainly run some tests. I've got no issue with that. Everyone's had the warning to be warned that, you know, servers might take a bit of a hit for a second while we're doing testing, but you know, this is what it's about, showing people what this can do.
So when you put this together and you hit go, essentially it's using all of our mining rigs to compute that algorithm.
Oh yeah, you actually see the output as each miner comes online, does their job, and then finishes and disconnects effectively. So we can definitely run through that. So you can see here, this is my training model, right? This is just to tell it to work out what points where the validation becomes. So you can see here 2060 training data, 2060 labels, which obviously just means it's all formatted inside of the system, and then there's 515 validations that it's got to run before it considers that acceptable.
Okay.
So, it runs quite a loop through. I mean, I could jack this up hard, like higher and higher and higher, or the easier way would just be to increase the data size, because then it's infinitely going to scale upwards. And this is all the quantum vector stuff to be able to extract the solve from Dynex, right? So once you send it off to Dynex's system and it returns to the data, obviously the system has to decode that data because it's packed up in like a really small packet size, and then it has to be exploded in order to facilitate reading it out.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I mean, do we want to run this? I mean, right now it's set
how do you make it go?
So it's set for a million chips. Let's do one better, right? Let's change this. Right. Let's change this a minute. YouTube prediction live. Right. So that's what's going to go on the actual blockchain right now. When I hit go, that's what's going to come up as the job. So it will come up with a tag of GOAT.
Okay.
So that you can actually see that it is running.
See it going on.
So let's go up to the very top. Let's start the process. So it is as simple as, telling it to run through the code. I could tell it to auto do this, but I like to do it one by one so you can see everything generate. You can see it's now generated all the points. 2060 training sets. This is the bit that we've just changed. So it's orange to tell me there's a change that needs activating. Now we're going to so this area is all computing the metrics. So that's once the data has been unpacked, compute it back to me, please. And then, do the precision and all sorts of things. So we're going to run 1,000 data points for now, just as a test run, so you can see what it does. Once you've obviously set this is the bit where you got to wait, right? So you enact this, right? And now it's a case of waiting, because now it's sending the job to the malloc.
Okay.
Right. Saying, you'll see it in a minute where it will start spitting out where it's converting it for a job. And basically what that does is it packs the job up ready to be distributed to the malloc. The malloc will then send it out to all the pool's mallocs, because nobody connects directly to the Dynex network. They connect off to the pool's mallocs. So you can see here, this is where it's converting it all to Cubo to be sent over to the network. And once it obviously reaches the malloc or pool side, our pool then picks at random X number of devices to facilitate helping with that job. And it will split it out over all the pools. So that it will take 50 from one pool, 20 from another pool, 20 from another pool, maybe like 10 from another pool.
Yeah.
And it just tries to even it out. And you'll see now this is it's waiting for workers. So it sent the job. Now it's waiting for the workers to say, hello, I'm here, I'm doing the job. Obviously, once this actually pops up a job number, we'll be able to actually look at the blockchain and on the POUW dashboard and actually see it.
Oh, nice.
Running.
So how many GPUs currently would this be using to pull this data for you?
So 1 million chips would be probably around 10,000 GPUs.
Okay.
Somewhere around that.
So and how many are on the network in total right now? Do you know?
It's 240 million chips. I think it's about 190,000 GPUs.
Oh, wow.
Somewhere around that. So it's quite a considerable amount.
So is Dynex worried about the consistency of the network being a GPU heavy network? Would they move to ASICs and FPGAs if they could, kind of thing?
No.
Okay.
No, they really don't like the idea of an ASIC, mainly because the amount of money that's going to have to go into it to even manufacture it, because it's going to have to be more like a GPU than a traditional ASIC. So, that's something that's got to be considered. And you can see here, so at the moment, we actually have 220,000 active chips. Current total so far is ramping up. We're at like 250,000 right now.
Wow.
And there's 120 something, 135 workers running it now. I just hope that, we don't see any problems, because that would be quite bad. I don't want it to fail while I'm, showcasing it to you guys. But this should be okay, this one.
Well, so this would be a good opportunity. Max asked a good question. Max Voltage asked a good question. In private chat says, how do GPUs provide useful work with such low power? Would it be more effective if they used more of the GPU capacities? Like,
that's actually a really good question, and one that we've been trying to answer for the last couple of days. Funnily enough, we saw some irregularities yesterday. You probably saw the short from Mr. Mad Electron, where he had a go at me for popping the PDU breaker in his mining shed. We're still trying to understand that, because that actually coincided with me running a heavy load test on Dynex. And so we've got to understand whether there's weird power spikes or whether it is a case of just a weird irregularity at the time. But I have asked if they would gain benefit from utilizing more PCI Express lanes, for example, so they can shunt that power, like all that data, back faster. But they assure me, realistically, with the packet sizes, 1x is still enough, which is amazing in one regard, right? That they're able to utilize 1x, because the barrier for entry for somebody to do Dynex and help with proof of useful work is a lot less than, say, your other things that require higher specifications, right? And that's just because their idea of proof of useful work is very different to what Dynex is doing. And that's what we've got to understand. Proof of useful work is too general for my liking. I really hate the general term, right?
Yeah.
It's too generalized. What Dynex is proof of compute. That's what they are, proof of compute. Then you've got Octaspace, which is proof of render, right? You've got Flux, which is proof of servers almost, or proof of virtualization, perhaps, is a better terminology for Flux, right? But it all is proof of useful work.
Yeah.
It's like that umbrella sort of term. And I don't like using umbrella terms, because it never works right, because people start thinking of one company doing proof of useful work and associate everything they're doing with this other company, and vice versa. So it's too generalized. Very, very different. Like, if Flux is one end of the scale of proof of useful work, Dynex is the other end. Flux is trying to build an ecosystem. Dynex is trying to just do one thing very well. Opposite ends of the scale.
So, and
it actually finished.
Things. Realistically, I mean, you could run the Dynex solve on the Flux network then, couldn't you? They're utilizing.
Me and Tames were actually discussing this no more than a couple of hours ago, how there is potential that this malloc problem, right, where people can't get connected to the network efficiently enough, could be loaded over the Dynex network, load the Dynex network straight over the Flux network as a Dockerized sort of service.
Yeah.
And then you could geolocate a DNS and away you go. So it's definitely doable, possible, yes. Would Flux allow it?
If I was to put that's a good question.
Here's my question. If I built a Docker with that working, would they allow it to run? Given that obviously they've had, shall we say, some rather interesting conversations between the two.
Well, I don't know. That's a good question. I'm actually writing that down to ask them. But I mean, if you build it and put it out there, at least they can see it and say, yeah, we'll do this, or no, we don't want anything to do with it. You know what I mean?
You get what I mean, though, right?
I get what you're
saying. There's nothing stopping somebody from building it inside of a Docker, put it up, get it running, have it connect back to the service in a special way for that kind of technology, right? Because you're obviously not going to be able to lock it down to IPs because nodes change.
Yeah.
But you could write an API to update the access levels, right? So say, for example, you change your IP, and it could automatically know that you've changed your IP, update the system accordingly, and all your mallobs come back online again, right? So there's certainly an interesting one.
Trying to add this. Tane sent me a screenshot in there it goes. Tane sent me a screenshot over in
Did
Discord.
he actually get put onto the job?
He found the job, and he
3727 it should read as the job number.
Where would I find that?
There you go. Job. It's right near the bottom. It says GPU 0 chips, and then underneath it says 3727. It's about just a little bit up from the blue 10 miner, not the bottom one, the next one up. There you go. Job 3727.
Yeah, no shit. So it was actually on the network being hashed, pushed out there.
And if you actually go to Deep Miners and click the Dynex jobs to see the proof of useful work dashboard, you'll actually see yours in there as a completed job.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Which is pretty cool. So
it's interesting to see. So this here, we can see that this job number, this was running that job. You know, his 3090, there's the hash rate, there's the temperatures. But before that, this up here, this was actually mining Dynex, right?
Yes.
So that was on the blockchain, trying to earn the coin. And it switched
over. You can
over.
actually see where it drops the hash rate slightly to deal with the job. Now, we're still having some issues where it'll spin back up. That's a 1.0 miner issue, not Dynex. He's fixing that. There'll be a new version out in a couple of days, probably. But basically, it plummets your hash rate because you're pushed over to the job. And then the idea is, as you can see here, it says job finished, restarting services at the bottom, right? That's the bit where it's a bit wonky at the moment, where it reconnects.
It connects back to, but
I
mean, as a miner, you don't even unless you're looking for it, you don't even notice it. I mean, the temperatures didn't change. The power consumption actually went down when it was processing the compute, and then jumping back over, it all stays with on chain. How does it do that? That's fucking wild.
So the way that they do it is basically it's entwined, right? So 5% of the proof of work stays on the card at all times, and then 95% of the rest of the card is then utilized for Dynex chips. So realistically, when you're actually mining, you're only using 5% of the GPU. That's it. The rest is all dedicated to Dynex's proof of useful work.
So if they wanted to, they could expand that from 5 if they wanted to make it 50-50, you know. Or which they probably wouldn't, because they're not a crypto company. They're a technology company. Their focus is on that 95%. But if they wanted to, they could break that down to a 50-50 and increase hash rates, increase performance and efficiency on the mining side. But it would reflect on the processing side of what they're actually trying to do with their algorithm, their AI and stuff. Interesting. Very interesting. I wonder if we could break that. We'll talk after we'll talk when we're not live.
Absolutely. But so you know, the really cool thing is that we're right at the very beginning of this, right? We don't know where it's going yet. This is so new and so cutting edge. Like, you know, Flux has been having troubles over time trying to get their head around everything for proof of useful work. Dynex is having similarly, you know, equal issues that they're having to deal with daily. You know, every time I run a test, I have to wait a few hours before we're allowed to run another test, because they've got to go through all that data, right? And there's mountains of it. Like, we're talking gigabytes of data just for one test.
Well, and like I said, that's good to see, because they're actually working on it. You know, like we talked a little bit before we went live, is like, this is an active in development process and project. It's not like Bitcoin and Litecoin and Dogecoin that were built and then just thrown out there and never really upgraded, or slight upgrades here and there kind of thing. But
it's
the most part,
such a
like
big,
set it and forget it.
Litecoin, Bitcoin, and all of that is such big environments now that it's very, very difficult to run out big updates, right? Patches and so forth are easy enough to handle, but quite honestly, big updates on those networks takes real time, because if there's a lot of money invested in those networks. So, you know, they've got to make sure it's done right. Could you imagine if the Ethereum merge had failed? It would have been bad, like really bad.
Yeah. That's
so,
a good way to
you know,
put it.
that's why Dynex wants to get all their stuff right before they let customers on it. And I get that. I'm a software developer by trade, right? That's my wheelhouse proper. And
hey, you know, honestly, Flux is the same way. That's why we don't have the benchmark tool. That's why it's not out already. Why you can't go out there and start running your own AI and ML and stuff. It's great. And that's I commend him for that. I don't want to rush into something and then back out of it.
You don't want it rushed.
Go back into it.
You don't want it rushed, but equally so, there's a fine balance, right? Where you announce something and go, it's coming. And then you basically put the timetable on yourself that it's got to come out soon. Otherwise, you've missed all that hype, right? So that's what I was saying to Dynex. I said to the Dynex team, I speak to all the devs, right? I said, if you announce something, you've got to be prepared to deliver on it, because the hype only lasts a very short amount of time to catch all that hype.
That's a good way to put it. So do they have a roadmap? Like a publicly available roadmap?
Yeah, they've got a roadmap up till the end of the year. They're already working on the next 2-year roadmap to put up.
Oh, cool.
So they've already gone past some of the milestones they wanted in Q4. One of them was a 15% market spread on Hive OS, which they have now managed to achieve. I think the price appreciation of Dynex has certainly made people very aware of them. You know, it for the last month, it's been fantastic price appreciation on it. Let's see if we can, let's see if they continue to push the same level of development going forward. And to be fair, with me, like being on there and keeping them honest, I think that, we can get something out of it.
And it's funny you say that with the price appreciation. I was watching a video earlier today by Son of a Tech from like 3 months ago, and he was actually talking to Sumitomo, and I caught a piece of it because my squirrel attention had me on other things. But he specifically was like, Dynex is 18 cents right now, and then went about the conversation, and I was like, holy shit, that was 3 months ago.
Yeah,
and it's like $1.
They've only been running 10 months.
Yeah, as a crypto, that's
as
wild.
A crypto firm, right? They've been running a few bit longer than that as an actual business, but I mean that's some going to make a move like that in 10 months.
Yeah, it is. It's good to see. So I want to ask some questions that were asked in the chat. Hashforce says, please ask Eddie directly. For all the people that still say Dynex is a scam, is there any way Dynex could be a scam? And have Yeti speak to this claim?
Oh, that's a big question, right? So there's a few answers to this, and there's a few different combinations of it. And every time I answer this, it's going to basically ask more questions than answers. So I do apologize. So far, I've done my digging. I've gone and even asked Sumitomo direct questions. Taines was very on the point. Sent me a question for Sumitomo. I sent it to him, and he was very nice to return the favor and send the answer back within 15 minutes. He is very approachable, or at least to me, he is. And like I say, they're going to be flying me and the wife out in September to come meet the team, see the Dynex facility, where they're working, what they're up to, maybe even potentially some prototype machine stuff of potentially some very early silicon. Maybe I'd love to see something like that, even if it's just some mock-ups of how it will look, how it will work. I would love to see it all. That's just more evidence, more showing me they're going in the right direction. And I'm even going to sit down and try and get Sumitomo to sit down with me and have a good chat. Like we're gonna just sit down, and hopefully, as long as he's okay and feels comfortable doing so, we'll hit record, and he will personally be very much out there then. And then there will be no more questions asked about who he is, and everything like that. So, and that might be the way to solve a lot of stuff right away.
Right.
Just sit down, have an interview, just one-on-one chat, just shoot the breeze like we're doing now.
Yeah, exactly. So Crypto Craig asks, can you select which job you work on? If not, is that coming in the future?
In the future, I believe that is something they're planning on. So you'll be able to log in with your wallet, maybe put a lock in place saying, I don't want this type of heavy workload job. I want this type of job load. Don't know quite yet. We've got to see where their front end stuff gets to. You know, it's evolving very quickly, their requirements for their on-ramp system. And every time I ask, it's like, we could show you something, but tomorrow it's about to change again. And it's like, I get what that is like when you're right at that beginning, like 3, 4, 5 times a day it's changing. So nothing you send is going to be very relevant at the time. I could show you a picture of the GUI, but tomorrow it's going to be different. So I'd have to show you another one. And by the day after that, it's going to be different again. So, and then they're going to test it and realize that there's a whole bunch of things it's not got, or missing features, or they've overcooked something and it's not working right. And then they'll have to change it again. So, you know, I would like to, I'd like to get to know the team over there, right? That's why I'm going to go out there. We're going to go out there for a nice long weekend. It's a nice place. It's Austria, you know, it's why not? Why not have a nice weekend over in Austria?
Absolutely. 2 birds, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, so speaking back to the scam question, like this seems like a lot of work to be a scam. To be a
I mean, that's something else, right? Would you put in this much work and this much resources if you were going to scam? I mean, it would be a hell of a scam.
Yeah.
Like on a level we haven't seen before, probably, right? Because normally rugs are 2 or 3 days after they've launched, boom, it's rugged, gone.
Yeah.
Why? Because that's the peak of their money. But Dynex has still not quite got there yet. I don't think it's reached its peak yet, because it's still having moments where it's going right up, then pulling back a little bit, and then it goes a little bit higher, and then it pulls back again. And I think it needs to level out a little bit first to see what's what and all that side of things. But quite honestly, why would you go this far? Like, you're talking high-level coders that are going to be working on this, right? Because it's not your everyday average person that's going to be working on this. Like, you know, you're going to need blockchain technology specialists, you're going to need machine learning specialists, and then you're going to need some people that are basically straddled both sides.
You can't just throw a bunch of chads at it and expect it, you know, to fucking happen, right?
Oh God, no.
So Max Voltage asks, do you have the ability to look up a particular job? 3042 is what I'm running right now on my rigs.
Right, so 3042, if I remember rightly, that's the big job. That's the one with the 100,000 Dynex reward that everyone gets pushed over to when there's no job on the network. You know, this job, obviously, sat solving is crunch through all the different, you know, variations until you actually hit the right one. Right.
So is it like an ongoing thing, kind of like folding at home, where it's just an evergreen kind of?
Okay. It's going to take a while, basically, which is why the reward is so high, right? Because once they do get to that, then whoever hits that final solve will earn 100,000 Dynex. And then you've got the machine learning, which is a contribution base. So as a worker on that job, you will get paid a percentage of that job. Now, if I request only 100 workers, then it's shared between 100 workers based on how heavy of a load your rig or your cards were doing at the time. So, you know, it's very much dependent on how they set this front end up. And I'm keen on seeing what their front end is going to be like, you know?
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm trying to be very pragmatic about, right? I've got to be, even though I'm enjoying working doing this, I've still got to take a very pragmatic approach about it, right? what are the pitfalls, what are the worries, what are the concerns, because I've got those concerns as well.
Sure.
It's not like I haven't, but obviously with potential to rug, it's such a big project now, and has got such a following and has actual legitimate staff. It's a little bit different than your traditional, if it does do that. And quite honestly, I can't see it happening. Sumitomo is very passionate about his project, like really passionate. Like all that with Mindsum 10 recently, like that really hurt like a lot of the people at Dynex, and we've since been able to patch things up a little bit, and Mindsum 10 is now back in their Discord and assisting, and you know, he realizes he jumped the gun a little bit, and he apologized, and
that's good.
We move on. So you know, it's good. It's good. I see Hashforce is making a comment in regards to the voice changer. I suppose that's probably going to be on your list, right, of questions?
No, it wasn't, but that's a good one to bring up. Yeah,
I was surprised it isn't, but
it's not
okay,
because
so Sumi is Austrian, right? First and foremost, he's Austrian, Southern Austrian in actual respect. And you know, if anyone's lived in and around Germany, Austria, that sort of area, those accents are very broad and thick, right? And realistically, could he have been using a voice changer? Potentially. But I've spoken to a lot of Austrians in my life, like that we see a lot of Austrians over in the UK, and they all have a really broad, thick accent like Sumitomo has. So, I mean, everyone is entitled to a bit of anonymity in their life, right? You know, we don't know why, for whatever reason, right? They're not shown themselves yet. They could be legal reasons around it, right? They might have other companies that have got contracts that forbade them to even be in the public eye, right? If they're doing any government contracts, for example, they wouldn't be allowed to be in the court in any sort of public light in that regards. I don't know what the crypto rules are around in Austria. They might be in a very grey area, right? Because they're not technically a blockchain company, but they are utilizing blockchain technology.
Right.
So it might be that they fall in a grey area. So we don't know all the facts. And, you know, it's good that they're willing to come on and have conversations without being on camera at the moment. That's a start, right? Would I like to see them come on actual camera, have a chat like we are now? Absolutely. Absolutely. I would love it. But obviously it's got to be on their time, not ours. That's the thing that I think is what a lot of people don't realize. It's got to be, it's when they feel comfortable, right? You know, I always use the analogy like Chump or Panda, right? Panda doesn't go on camera. Why? Because he wants some anonymity and peace and quiet for his family. I appreciate that. I absolutely appreciate that. He doesn't need a whole bunch of Red Panda fans turning up on his doorstep. I appreciate that, you know. And it's the same with Chump. Chump was still running his business. He had to sort out all of that first before he went live on camera. You know, we didn't understand that at the time until he explained it on live when he finally was, you know, revealed as who he was. And again, you know, first off, I didn't go on camera. My first few interviews on YouTube were not behind a camera. It took until I went out in first trip out to America last year in August before I put myself on camera for the mining roundtable with Chump and Hobbyist. So, you know, but I mean, have you got any other questions?
I do. I've got a couple more. So, let's see. We answered that. So this one does. I guess I kind of already know the answer to that, but I'll ask it anyway. So currently, Dynex doesn't have a marketplace where you can go and put your own, projects out
currently.
there to be.
Not
but
currently,
are they
it's in
going
development.
to so that it's public facing, not just
Correct.
hey, I reach out to you,
Yes.
I have this project, you need to vet it
No,
first.
it will not be like that. It will be a full front end customer experience. Customer can build their apps, even potentially to the point they might even release some kind of sandbox mode that will allow you to get an idea of how many chips you should be using, for the duration you should be using it for, how long it will take to saturate stuff, all of that kind of thing. I think is good, as an onboard ramp, and they're going to need to have a proper onboard ramp. If they're going to be legitimized, they need to take fiat, unfortunately. They can't just take crypto.
Completely agree. Enterprise customers aren't going to want to go out and exchange and deal with that shit their own. They want to give you a card, and they need their easy button for sure. Which brings me to another question. Are they going to have an SLA, like whatever that service level agreement is based on the job for their enterprise?
I would suspect that doing that kind of high level computation will come with SLAs anyway. It's got to be 99.999% available at all times while you're running that test. It can't ping out, it can't crash, it can't do any of that. So I guess they're going to have some form of SLA down the road. I haven't heard any mutterings around an SLA, but I can certainly ask. They're fully approachable, and I can ask that question on whether or not they're going to have SLAs. But I suspect that that's part and parcel of the business model, right? They're going to need to have SLAs.
Well, and coming from the cloud world, if it's anything less than 3 nines, we don't want to touch it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's got to have the 3 nines on the end of it. Otherwise, no big company's going to use it. And that's something else that we would like to try and get a working out of is network uptime. Right. That's something that's important for Dynex's solution, and something that I've been talking with Sumitomo about potentially building is some kind of network system status almost. What's the status of the network? Is it good? Is it having some issues? Are you working on something? Because the more information you give to your people, the more informed they are, and the less likely they are to get upset, especially with planned maintenance. As you probably know, right? You've been in the industry long enough in that kind of environment, right? Even when you plan maintenance, you still get the odd customer who phones up and says, why isn't it working?
Yeah, I can't get to my app. Well, it's Sunday at 3 a.m. You're not supposed to be online anyway, but
exactly.
Right. So it looks like we got a couple more questions in the chat.
Sure.
I don't want to take up your whole afternoon.
No, man, go for it.
I mean, I got nothing else.
It's not often you get to shoot breeze like this,
Right, exactly. I try not to. I don't want it to be a formal, we're in these guidelines. Like, we're just shooting the shit, talking shop.
Exactly.
Right? That's the whole point. So the pirate asks, if it wasn't already asked, what are some of the best GPUs for Dynex on the mining side?
We have been finding out there are some hidden gems that we did not realize. SRB recently updated their software to give more performance to a Vega and a Radeon 7. And surprisingly enough, a Radeon 7 thrashes most NVIDIA GPUs. It'll give a 3090 a run for its money.
Panda's going to love to hear that.
Oh, yeah. I already sent Panda a message and said time to dust them off.
That's funny.
Legitimately. They do something like 8 kilohash on Dynex, which is really impressive. But then all AMD have been found to have such a better FP64 or double precision value compared to NVIDIA, because NVIDIA strangled their cards for their professional cards. Because they want to sell their data center cards, which are packed with FP64 stuff. So if you look at H100, it's right up there. But you look at the equivalent card for the consumer, which would be like a 4090, right? It's 1/3 of what the H100 has, if not more. And it's
so they
just
nerfed it themselves.
And I think that's a business decision for their data center and compute units, personally. That's probably a business decision from NVIDIA at that point. But AMD, they don't really have a massive, huge data center market for their GPU side, right? They do for their CPU now. I mean, neck and neck now. in the data center, and I've even got 50-50 split AMD and Intel now in my rack at the data center, because there are jobs that are more suited for AMD CPUs, you know, where you need that monster amount of cores, or you need that level 3, you know, layer 3 cache and all of that. Like, you know, all of that takes into regard. So I mean, but their data center cards are not there yet with AMD. So they pack their double precision on their consumer cards. Well, this is really crazy, right? So a 6600 XT is on par with my 3060 Ti for efficiency.
Oh, wow.
That's crazy.
Wow. Yeah.
Like, AMD really has got the number for Dynex at the moment. And I suspect there are some benefits out of NVIDIA that we can probably get, maybe some efficiency, power savings, but you're not going to get much more out of the double precision because there's no more to give.
Well, it's already pretty darn efficient too. I mean, the power settings on those, it's like, it's just dripping, you know?
Yeah.
All Set Miner asks, security and holdings questions. Are they working on bridges or third app integrations? I'm assuming you meant third-party app integrations to Ledger / EliPal.
Okay. So they announced a couple of days ago that they've got one key. They produced a custom one for Casper, I believe, as well. But they're now doing a Dynex specific one as well. I'm actually getting one sent to us for a hardware audit. It's going to be one of the first to be attempted to be hacked, shall we say. We've actually bought a whole kit of hardware hacking devices and some custom PCBs of my own design to have a go at doing hardware auditing. So that's going to be something pretty cool when we get that done. But one key has been announced, and day before yesterday, Tangem turned up in their Discord. I believe that's because Mr. Chump Change made the introduction. That's right. He did say that, didn't he? Yeah. So that's pretty cool, right? Because Tangem's a big wallet. One key in China is a massive wallet. So again, that might not be for everyone because it's Chinese manufactured and everything, yada yada. Yeah. But over there, that's for that market, I think, personally. But Tangem's a viable option, right? Tangem is a half decent wallet. Chump seems to like it a lot better than Ledger. Yeah. Oh yeah. I've swapped all of mine off Ledgers now. All of
Have you? I still got to do that. Yeah. Okay. So one last question from me, and it doesn't look like we're getting too many more jumping up in the chat, but what regulations are they planning for or planning against? I know as crypto, so
you're talking about what they technically asked me to do properly, right? The stress testing was just a byproduct of me being there to do this exact thing, and that is the security side of it, right? So here's the example. I write a program, right, to do something nefarious, right? I'm going to have full access to actually do this. And they've given me the go-ahead. We'll be very transparent about what we're doing. But needless to say, I'm going to have a go at breaking a SHA-256 password brute force, not using a cryptographic way of doing it or a rainbow table to make it quicker. I'm talking just about raw horsepower and see if it can be broken, because they always said SHA-256 would be susceptible once quantum computing came about. But what happens if there's something in between? Nobody saw that. So the question is, can it be done? And if so, what would happen? Because that's going to send shockwaves around the world if SHA-256 can be brute forced, right? It's going to rumble a lot of industries immediately, right? Because that's bad, right? How many things are built on SHA-256? Tons. Yeah, not just crypto stuff. No, we're talking about like nuclear missile codes, I believe, are still SHA-256 encrypted, because back then when they made them, that's all it was about. So it may have to force companies to increase theirs to SHA-512 overall. Does it take an impact punishment? About 2 milliseconds to verify. So it's not a lot of difference, but it will be very, very interesting. Here's the best bit, right? So everything that's run on Dynex, even that test we just ran, leaves a digital fingerprint, right, of what the chips were doing at any given time.
Yeah.
Right.
So
what if you could tailor a solution to monitor for those digital fingerprints?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So that's what I'm training a model to do, and it's going to be powered by Dynex effectively. So Dynex will periodically check itself using the Dynex system to work out whether somebody's, being nefarious or not. And we'll also be able to write it into their front end as well, that they'll be able to work out and have some basic logic around the back end of that to be able to tell whether or not you're doing something you shouldn't be.
No shit.
Yeah. But first, the only way you can train a model to know what's bad and what's good is to do bad things.
To do the bad thing, yeah. You got to give it the variables.
That's one of those things that I'm not taking that lightly, right? So a lot of this will have to be very sensitive about how we showed it, how we're doing it, right? Because I can show what I'm doing, but I've got to be careful how much I show here, right? Because I don't want to be giving techniques of how to go break SHA-256 codes to everyday general people, right? That would be really bad, right? And that would get me in a lot of trouble, right? Because it put a big target on my back, and I don't want that, right? So we will show the end result. We won't probably show how we integrate it, right? Because then people will start realizing how we're doing it and how the fingerprinting system works.
Yeah.
But
yeah, we don't want Yeti getting Epstein.
The raw fundamentals, everything else will show.
Interesting. Yeah, that's fucking cool. I'm interested to see that for sure.
Yeah. From a case study perspective, right? That's the sort of thing that would end up in a white paper. That's the sort of thing that would end up in a white paper. How I broke SHA-256 or how Dynex broke SHA-256 would be, white paper worthy at that point.
Very impactful.
So,
for sure. So, okay. So, and of course, I say I have one last question, and then I think of another one.
Keep going, man. Like, I'm fine with it. I don't mind at all. I'm enjoying just chatting.
Dynex is working on their own hardware, right? That's
so that's the Dynex neuromorphic chip.
Yeah. Are they designing this for themselves, for their own data centers, or are they designing this and then going to sell it to us?
I believe both is the answer. They want to have a certain capacity on the network at all times. The best bit is obviously their malloc would have to be registered with the network in order for them to do jobs, and they will be able to exempt their own wallet from the payout system. So they will not be getting paid for doing machine learning work, which is, a very commendable thing, right? They could just put all of their stuff on and take all of the rewards.
Take the hash rate. Yeah.
Just like they could put on a ton of hash rate if they wanted to and reap the rewards, but they don't. To pay their bug bounty that they recently had, they purchased it off an exchange.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was a fair launch token, no pre-mine, no massive dev wallet, no nothing. They purchase it off of an exchange, which is commendable again, right? A lot of networks do not do that. They have a big dev fund that's got like 10% of the total coins, and it's been pre-mined before the launch. Well, that's something that Dynex didn't do.
Yeah. So, which kind of points back to them not being a crypto company. They're a technology company. So
they're a technology company first and foremost.
Looking at it as a business aspect and not, eating into it.
They're utilizing blockchain technology, not running like as a blockchain company. They sort of straddle that in between line, basically, I would say. I think that's the right way of doing it for doing supercomputing and processing like that anyway, because the clientele you're going to be pulling in is all going to be from the business markets. It's not going to be from crypto industries. It's going to be from businesses. So
yeah, and that's important. And so is there any other questions you guys want to ask?
Yeah, I mean, if anyone's got questions, like I'm more than happy to answer questions. Like I've been very much trying to be as transparent as possible here, right? This is the luxury not many people get, and not many crypto projects even do this, right? Open their systems up to somebody that isn't an employee or part of their business model, right? They've given me the same level of access that their staff have. So if there is questions that people have for Dynex, like if I can't get it, I'll go to the source and get it for you. I've been very, very open about that, and I think that it's quite unique in this line of industry, right? Very unique.
Yeah, ETH wouldn't have done that.
No, God no, God no. Oh, Steven Cicero says when YouTube channel, never. Absolutely never.
That's funny. Well, I don't blame you.
I
it's
mean,
a lot of work.
Yeah, I like I say, I didn't at first. I was very reluctant to want to do a poll. Right, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to run a poll.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Like hours and hours and hours of tinkering with servers, making sure their stability is there and everything like that. And then, you know, we've had some weird issues with luck on our poll where, you know, we've had 900% luck and very strange things happen. And so I've got to understand and get my head around it and work out a fix. And yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's given me such an insight on how Dynex's system works, because I can see it from literally from the moment I send the job to Dynex, right? It hits their mallob. Then it sends out to all the mallobs connected to it. That includes ours. So I can see it come through to the mallob and receive the job. And then I can also see it pass that out to random miners on our network that are connected to our mallob. So, you know, that validation that it's actually doing what they say it's doing. Do you get what I mean? Like a lot of people said, how can you do this? Can you prove it? Well, that's why I fought so hard to build the POUW dashboard. And I've asked for more updates out of it now, even more. After running the few big tests, that's where I was like, oh, I've got loads of ideas now. I want to know whether the job completed successfully or failed. I want a total time taken. I want number of workers, how much energy that used. There's so much I would like out of it. And thankfully, Dynex is willing to give us those variables, shall we say. You know, I would love to know what different versions of miners was it that ran that job. Was it SRB primarily? Was it 1.0 miner? If they start getting other miners, then that would be really good information to show. Which miner version are people using for all their cards? Is it predominantly NVIDIA? Is it predominantly AMD? You know, all those statistical stuff. I work with statistics every day. It's just, unfortunately, an occupational hazard that I want to know all the ins and outs and all the stats.
Yeah, it makes dashboards a lot more interesting for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And the good thing is we're the first to release the POUW, like the full proof of useful work dashboard. I've since released it open source. Anyone can download a copy and run it locally on their own web servers. So if you want a copy, you can go to their GitHub, you can fork it, you can mess around with it. It's freely available. I happily gave it away as open source. I think that's the best way to be. And any pull on the Dynex network is fine to implement it. Like we've checked, double checked, it's good. The rate that it can handle of calling their server, absolutely fine. So yeah, and now I'm now looking at the next version of the POUW dashboard with even more data in it, because the more data we give, the more people don't feel like they're being, you know, hiding in the shadows, shall we say.
Yeah. Well, and more data in general is going to help, you know, you on the development side of, you know, it'll answer so many questions. I mean, that's all.
And yesterday's test, like, even though it failed, you should have seen the amount of people that were sending me data logs, like to send to Dynex. Like, everyone realizes that what I'm doing is bridging the gap between Dynex and the normal everyday miner, right? So that they can feel like they're contributing, and that's great. The contributions that we've been getting and advice and you know, pictures, logs, you name it, has helped Dynex immensely. Like I said yesterday, without those logs coming through, it would have took them 3 times longer to go through and find the fix. Instead, it took them, 4 hours or 5 hours to fix it. And then we're ready again for another test run. And that's great. Like, that sort of level of participation as well shows why Dynex is starting to get a bit popular, right? Because they're interacting on that level with their people that are actually going to be supplying the compute power. Yeah. So basically, they're talking to all their vendors at that point, right? Because that's what you're acting like. You're acting like a vendor to them. You're supplying them raw horsepower.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's something that us as miners are not really used to. We're used to just pointing at a bot, pointing at a stratum and getting crypto for it. And there's more to it than that now. And it's really cool to see that development and all of these companies that are, coming forward with more of a, hey, you have this hardware, we want to use it and pay you for it. So, we kind of
in this world, it's becoming more and more prevalent, right? Compute power is king at the moment. That's where the money is right now. So I get it. Taines just asked a question. He said, can you explain why Dynex is not open source for everyone to see? So there are parts of Dynex at the moment that aren't open source. I'll be open and honest about that. Their malloc is not open source. Some of it is, but not all of it. So the bit that works on their server, right? They're still trying to understand how they can further decentralize it. That's one big issue they're working on, but they're also working on a node wallet that should allow you to run your own malloc locally. So instead of you can still connect to a pool, but instead of using, say, our deep miners malloc, you can just put your internal IP address of wherever that malloc's running. And it will be infinitely better and more stable for the system as well, because you don't have to connect out to our UK malloc, for example. You'll be connecting at home, which will be a lot better, because the data links will be directly from you being a malloc directly to Dynex. So there's no having to hop it round all here, there, and everywhere to get it back to Dynex. It'll be just you to Dynex.
Yeah.
And that leads into, corporate mallocs. So me as a company might have a malloc in my office where I can push data to, and it sends it straight into the Dynex network to process using our already saved workload and models, right? And it just sends that job off because we've got credit in our account. Bam, it just runs it and then sends it back through the malloc back to our server.
Yeah. Almost like a private VNet
security layer. I know that Dynex at the moment has not had all of their security audits yet, but that's because they're still effectively in the development phase. There's no customers on there yet. So they have a little bit of time right now to get all of their stuff right. I know that they're going for ISO 27001, which is one of the hardest to go after, right? Yeah. We got it after 3 years of going backwards and forwards. It took me a long time to get our ISO 27001. So it's not an overnight thing, right? And it's going to cause a whole bunch of problems with ISO 27001 because the people that are doing it are going to have to understand what Dynex is. Like, do they even understand what Dynex is?
It's going to be tricky. Curve. Yeah.
It's going to be tricky. So, but they are going to have all of their security audits, all of them, every single one, which is quite impressive because I know that a lot of crypto businesses don't go down that path, right? Because they know full well they're going to just fail straight away. Yeah. Right. Whereas Dynex wants to work within that space. Therefore, they're going to need to be authorized. Have to be
part of your business.
No big company's going to touch them without ISO 27001 accreditation. Let's be honest. No big company, right? Smaller companies might because they'll take a risk, but a Fortune 500 company, not a chance. And I'll be honest about that. They need their security audits in place before they even consider going after a Fortune 500 company.
Well, and having all of this in line already in place in the back end is going to prove more valuable on the front end and increase price appreciation, I think, on the token itself or on the coin itself. So all of this mining that we're doing is just going to be more and more profitable for us. The more that Dynex becomes a real company,
the moment they start getting actual paid jobs as well on their network, and you're getting not only your proof of work rewards for your normal mining, but you're then getting on top proof of useful work drop-ins every job. My God, you could be earning 3 times as much as you are now if they get the number of jobs they're hoping for.
So what's the maximum supply?
That's a good question. I haven't actually even really took too much of a look into the coin side of it, because realistically, actually it might even be on my audit. It might be. Let me go and check. I know that they've got quite an aggressive emission schedule. They do have quite an aggressive emission schedule. That's something to consider, right? So when we started the pool, it was at 200. It's now 161. So it is quite aggressive.
Oh, wow.
I believe the whole lot will be mined out probably in a couple of years' time. Let me just bring up their white paper, because then I can look at it straight away.
Says 100 million only.
Yeah, I believe it's actually 90 million with a buffer of 10, because they had some issues right at the beginning, and therefore they wanted to solve that issue. So what they did was expanded it to 100 million. I remember that distinctly, because I actually went and asked Sumitomo about it, because at first their white paper said 90 million, and then a ton of people were saying, no, it's 100 million. So I went and asked, and that was very early on in their phase.
They're really under the thumb to get this all worked out and get customers to start paying them for jobs before this runs out. Because once it runs out,
the aggressive emission schedule puts them right under like a very tight time limit, very tight.
Yeah,
but if they can prove that they can do it and nail it in the time before the emission schedule runs out, then it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, very cool. Well, we've been going for almost an hour and a half.
I know, man. This is like me and Mad Electron when we were doing the showcase of POUW. By the time we finished, we were like, damn, this thing's an hour and 40 minutes long. We're like, we need to cut this down. And we still couldn't cut it down like less than 50 minutes.
That's
crazy.
Yeah.
So,
well, is there anything else that you want to share about Dynex, the work that you've been doing, or the pool that you've been working with?
I saw some cool stuff today, which obviously I briefly touched on, that architectural stuff, which I've asked a lot. When he showed me it, it was like 50 questions off the bat. Like I had like so many questions on asking for that bit, because architecturally that could work brilliantly. But that could be for any number of things, right? If it can draw you a floor plan based on all your data and work out where things should go, you've got Wi-Fi hotspot points, working out where the best place is based on the data that you provided. And it could work out exactly to a millimeter where you need to put those access points in order to facilitate a global coverage of a building, right? You could give it all the thicknesses of the walls, and it know how the signal is going to react through that thickness of wall, and have it train and understand all of that. And it's just that bit was a bit. I mean, that only got given to me, that bit of news, like I don't know, an hour before we came on. So I mean, I haven't even really looked at it properly, but it's very impressive. Very impressive.
Very cool. All right. Well, guys, thanks for coming in. Yeti, thank you very much for taking the time and having a conversation with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I learned a lot.
I've said to anyone, if they have questions, just drop me a line. Like, I'm more than happy to get you an answer.
Good deal. And so how can people get a hold of you? What's the easiest way?
I reluctantly am on Twitter, or should I say X. I thought I'd never go on there, but I suppose from being able to give people information, it's very useful. It's Yeti Crypto. I'm on there, and obviously I'm usually on a Wednesday with Chump, although we are planning on moving the day because Chump's schedule's a little bit busy at the moment. So we're probably going to work it out for a weekend release instead.
Gotcha.
So failing that, I'm in Misfit Mining all the time. Most of the time I'm in the channel talking away to people, chatting their ear off. So,
well, good deal. All right, guys. yeah, so we're going to get out of here. Thank you for coming today. Really appreciate it. Hit the like button on the way out and subscribe if you are not subscribed already. Trying to hit 10,000 subscribers by end of the year. So we're getting there slowly but surely. And thanks. See you guys. All right. Looks like we're